fought in the past, are fighting in the present, and will fight in the future. Since their formation, the Taliban have been very active in Afghanistan, single-handedly shaping the country into how it is today. So what set the stage for them to form, and how did they grow? The Taliban was formed in 1994 by Muhammad Omar, a religious student. He was disappointed in the lack of Islamic rule in the country, and he wanted to change that. The organization grew rapidly, gaining 15,000 members. They also became allies with the terrorist group Al-Qaeda and received financial assistance from Pakistan. In 1996, they gained control of Afghanistan and established the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. And this brings us to our first conflict. Labeled the War in Afghanistan, this 20-year-long war was waged from 2001 to 2021, and it was fought between the US and the Taliban. The war began with the 9/11 attacks that were perpetrated by Al-Qaeda in 2001. 4 passenger planes were hijacked and crashed into important US government buildings, causing 2,977 deaths and billions of dollars in losses for the US government. On October 7th, the US invaded Afghanistan to capture Al-Qaeda leaders, starting the war. The US gained control of Afghanistan in November 2001, and after what looked like a US victory, they stayed to help build a democracy and an Afghan army. But as the US relaxed, the Taliban struck again and violence increased. As attacks went on, the US assassinated Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden in 2011. Achieving their primary goal, US President Obama declared a troop drawdown, slowly transferring security responsibilities to the Afghan National Army's hands. But due to the army's incompetence, the Taliban slowly started to take control of some regions in Afghanistan, and by 2018, they were in control of 70% of the country. The war was coming to an end, and in 2020, the US and the Taliban signed an agreement, which stated that the US would withdraw their troops on the condition that the Taliban prevented other terrorist organizations from operating in the country. After the US withdrew, the Taliban launched their final offensive, and on August 15, 2021, they regained control of the country of Afghanistan and re-established the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. The war was declared over, and the 20-year effort taken by the US to turn Afghanistan into a democracy went to waste. The war had a devastating effect on Afghanistan and its people. 71,000 civilians died, and more than half the population is below the poverty line. Nearly a quarter of the children in the country are also engaged in child labor, with many being forced to skip school. And the Taliban has also enforced strict Islamic law, which means women cannot work and girls cannot go to school. The Taliban victory has also aggravated the conflict between the Islamic State and the Taliban, a conflict that still goes on to this day. And this brings us to our next conflict, one that is still happening in the present, the Taliban versus the Islamic State. So what is the Islamic State, and why are they in a conflict with the Taliban? The Islamic State is a terrorist organization that aims to establish an Islamic caliphate, starting with Iraq and Syria and spreading worldwide. The organization mainly operates in those 2 countries, but in 2015, an affiliate organization, which calls itself the Islamic State Khorasan Province, or ISIS-K, has emerged, and has pledged allegiance to the main group under the goal of creating a province of the caliphate in the land of Khorasan. And Khorasan is a region which includes modern-day Afghanistan. Since their formation, ISIS-K has been at war with the Taliban for control over the country. The conflict between the 2 groups started in 2015 after ISIS-K militants killed a senior commander of the Taliban. Sporadic clashes began between the 2 groups, but the scale of the conflict really increased after the Taliban victory. After their victory, the Taliban moved to defeat any potential opponents, which included ISIS-K, while the ISIS-K denounced the Taliban capture and upped the scale of their attacks, carrying out more suicide bombings and civilian massacres. Some attacks perpetrated by ISIS-K during the course of the war include the suicide bombings in the Kabul airport and the Khanduz mosque, which have killed 230 and 200 people respectively. Over the course of the war, 1,500 people have died. The Taliban does have much more men, and ISIS-K has yet to hold any territory in the country. ISIS-K has also suffered huge losses over the course of the war, but they show no signs of stopping. Overall, the Taliban will most likely be able to hold their ground for quite a while. But this conflict is likely not the last conflict that the Taliban will face. In fact, current events suggest a conflict between the Taliban and their long-term ally, Pakistan. Pakistan initially supported the Taliban because they wanted an ally in control of Afghanistan and they wanted to prevent Indian influence in the country. But now that the Taliban is in control, they don't need any more support and have increasingly ignored Pakistan's orders. This is a problem for Pakistan because of the terrorist organization TTP, or the Pakistani Taliban. Though the Afghan Taliban and Pakistani Taliban are not related, they do share similar goals, with the Pakistani Taliban wanting to overthrow the Pakistan government and establish an Islamic emirate of its own. The Afghan Taliban has been harboring the Pakistani Taliban and providing the TTP a safe base for operations in Afghanistan. The TTP has also reorganized under a new leader and is planning a new series of attacks. And this brings us to our final conflict, one that will happen in the near future, Pakistan versus the two Talibans. Due to the rising tensions, Pakistan has already conducted an airstrike in Afghanistan in regions where it suspects TTP activity is happening. But the conflict hasn't started yet, with the Taliban not retaliating, only threatening to do so. The change of Prime Minister in Pakistan from Imran Khan, who was a Taliban supporter, to Shehbaz Sharif, who may be more willing to take action, may also play a part in starting the conflict. In conclusion, the Taliban have had a monumental effect on Afghanistan. Since their creation, after a war with arguably the world's strongest country, the United States of America, they have taken control over an entire country and have become one of the world's strongest terrorist groups. They are also in a war with another well-known terrorist group, the Islamic State, and they will also most likely be in a war with the Pakistani government. It is clear that the Taliban have grown to be very strong and cannot be stopped easily. They will definitely have a large impact on Afghanistan for years to come. Thank you.